Lyra then stood at the great window of her chamber and looked out at the city below. Tessara Prime was beautiful in the evening light. The silver towers caught the setting sun and turned to gold. She had lived here all her life. She had walked these halls since childhood. And now she was about to give it all away for a marriage she did not want. Her mother's words still rang in her ears. The Dominion needs this alliance. The humans are our only hope against the Craven. You will marry their representative. You will do your duty. Duty. That word had shaped her entire existence. She was born to serve the Dominion. Her feelings did not matter. Her dreams did not matter. Only the survival of her people mattered. The Craven swarm had been consuming star systems for decades. Their hunger was endless. Their numbers were beyond counting. The Volari had fought them for generations, but each year they lost more ground. Their fleet was old and tired. Their warriors were few. They needed help. And so they had turned to the humans. Lyra did not understand humans. No one in the Dominion did. They had only been traveling among the stars for 300 years. That was nothing. The Volari had ruled space for 10,000 years. Yet somehow, in their brief time, humans had become one of the most feared species in the galaxy. She had heard the stories. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not know when to stop. They did not retreat when they should. They threw themselves into battles they could not win, and somehow they won them anyway. But stories were just stories. She would believe them when she saw proof. A soft chime announced a visitor. Lyra straightened her gown and turned to face the door. Her brother Torek entered. He was tall and stern, with the silver eyes all Volari shared. He looked at her with something like pity. "The human has arrived," he said. "The ceremony will begin in 2 hours." "What is he like?" Lyra asked. Torek made a dismissive sound. "Unremarkable, quiet. He smiles too much, and speaks too softly. I expected a warrior. They sent us a clerk." Lyra felt her heart sink a little. She had not expected love from this marriage, but she had hoped for respect. She had hoped for a partner who could stand beside her. Instead, she was getting a clerk. "His name?" she asked. "Daniel Cross. He holds the rank of colonial officer. Nothing special." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then I will make the best of it." The ceremony hall was filled with the great families of the Dominion. They wore their finest robes. Their jewels caught the light of 1,000 floating crystals. This was the most important political event in a generation. Everyone wanted to witness it. Lyra walked down the central aisle. Her gown was white and silver, the traditional colors of binding. Her steps were steady. She had been trained for moments like this. At the altar stood High Matriarch Solanas, her mother. The matriarch was old, but still powerful. Her eyes missed nothing. She had arranged this marriage down to the smallest detail. She would not allow it to fail. And beside the altar stood the human. Daniel Cross was shorter than Lyra expected. Humans were smaller than Volari in general, but he seemed especially unremarkable. He had brown hair and brown eyes. His face was pleasant but ordinary. He wore a simple dark uniform, without decoration. He did not look like a representative of a feared species. He looked like someone who might serve drinks at a gathering. But when Lyra reached the altar and looked into his eyes, she saw something else. Something she could not name. His eyes were calm, but they were not empty. There was weight behind them. There was depth. He smiled at her, gently. "I know this isn't what you wanted," he said quietly. "I'll try not to make it harder than it has to be." Lyra blinked. She had expected arrogance. She had expected demands. She had not expected understanding. "Thank you," she said simply. The ceremony proceeded. The matriarch spoke the ancient words. Lyra and Daniel exchanged the ritual vows. Their hands were bound together with silver cord, then released. In the eyes of the Dominion, they were now bonded. The celebration afterward was grand, but hollow. Lyra sat beside her new husband and watched her people pretend to be happy. Everyone knew this was politics. Everyone knew there was no love here. But they smiled and raised their glasses anyway. Daniel ate little and drank less. He watched the room with those calm eyes. Sometimes his gaze would pause on a doorway or a window. Lyra wondered what he was looking for. "You seem tense," she said. He glanced at her. "Do I? I apologize. Old habits." "What kind of habits?" He smiled that gentle smile. "Nothing important. Just awareness." It was a strange answer, but before Lyra could ask more, a commotion rose near the entrance. An officer in military dress rushed in and went straight to Admiral Zeth. They spoke in urgent whispers. The Admiral's face went pale. Silence spread across the hall as everyone sensed that something was wrong. Admiral Zeth stepped forward. His voice was steady, but Lyra could see the fear in his eyes. "A Craven war fleet has been detected," he announced. "They are approaching Valari space. Their numbers are—" He paused and swallowed. "Their numbers exceed 2,000 vessels." Gasps filled the hall. 2,000 was impossible. The largest Craven fleet ever recorded was 600. This was an invasion force beyond anything they had faced. Lyra felt cold spread through her chest. This was the end of everything. She looked at Daniel. She expected to see fear. She expected to see panic. Instead, she saw something else entirely. His gentle expression was gone. His posture had changed. He sat straighter, his shoulders squared. His eyes moved across the room, calculating, assessing. For a single moment, he did not look like a clerk at all. He looked dangerous. Then he turned to her, and his soft smile returned. "It seems our honeymoon will have to wait," he said. He stood and excused himself politely. He walked toward a side corridor, already pulling a small communication device from his pocket. Lyra watched him go. She did not know what she had just seen, but she had a feeling that Daniel Cross was not what he appeared to be. And she had a feeling that everything was about to change. The hours that followed were chaos. Sirens wailed across Tessara Prime. Citizens fled to shelters. Military officers shouted orders that contradicted each other. Fear hung over the city like a fog. Lyra was taken to the command center beneath the Capitol building. It was a vast room filled with screens and tactical displays. She could see the approaching Craven fleet represented as red dots. There were so many dots that they blurred together. Admiral Zeth stood at the central console. His face was gray. "Our defense fleet numbers 400 vessels," he said. "We cannot stop them. We can only delay them." "How long?" the matriarch asked. "Hours, perhaps a day. Then they will reach the planet." Lyra felt sick. All those people above, all those lives, they would all be consumed by the swarm. "Where is the human?" Torek demanded. "Where is our great alliance when we need it?" As if in answer, a communication signal cut through the noise. A woman's voice filled the room, sharp and commanding. "Valari Command, this is Commander Kira Holt of the Earth Colonial Fleet. We are responding to your situation, requesting coordinates for the captain." Admiral Zeth looked confused. "We have no captain here. We have a diplomat, Daniel Cross." There was a pause. Then Kira's voice returned, and there was something like amusement in it. "Daniel Cross is the captain, former captain of the 14th Void Hunters. Tell him Fleet Omega has arrived. He'll know what it means." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at each other in confusion. Lyra understood first. Daniel Cross was not a diplomat. He never had been. He was a soldier. She ran. She found him in a side corridor, dressed in combat armor she had not known he possessed. It was black and scarred with old damage. He was checking weapons with the ease of long practice. When he saw her, he paused. "You should be in the command center," he said. "You lied to me," Lyra replied. "I never lied. I just didn't tell you everything." He holstered a sidearm. "The 14th Void Hunters. We were a special operations unit. I led them for 12 years. We did the missions that no one else could do." "Why did you stop?" His face became distant. "I lost most of my team on a mission called New Montana. After that, I couldn't lead anymore. I requested transfer to diplomatic service. I thought this assignment would be peaceful." He smiled without humor. "I was wrong." Outside, Lyra heard the rumble of ships entering atmosphere. She ran to a window and looked up. The sky was filled with vessels. Human vessels. They dropped from orbit like falling stars, hundreds of them, in formations she did not recognize. "How many ships?" she whispered. 800 in the Rapid Response Fleet. Another 1,200 in Fleet Omega, arriving now. Daniel moved to stand beside her. "We always knew the Craven might attack during the Alliance ceremony. Command wanted me here in case things went bad." "You were bait," Lyra said. "I was preparation." He met her eyes. "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you. The mission required secrecy." Before Lyra could respond, his communication device chirped. Kira's voice came through. "Captain, we're in position. The Craven will reach engagement range in 30 minutes. What are your orders?" Lyra watched Daniel transform. His gentle demeanor vanished. His voice became cold and precise. "Deploy the Void Hunters to assault positions. I want boarding teams ready for the command vessels. We cut off the heads, and the body will fall." "Understood, Captain. It's good to have you back." Daniel looked at Lyra one final time. "Stay in the command center. Watch the tactical feeds. You'll see what humans do when we have something to protect." Then he was gone, running toward a shuttle that waited outside. Lyra returned to the command center. The mood had shifted. The arrival of the human fleet had given everyone hope. Admiral Zeth was now coordinating with Commander Kira, merging their forces into a combined battle line. The tactical display showed the two fleets approaching each other. The Craven still outnumbered them, but not by as much as before. Then the battle began. Lyra had studied war. She had read about tactics and strategies, but she had never seen anything like what the humans did that day. Their ships did not fight in neat lines like Valari vessels. They moved in small groups, darting and weaving, striking from unexpected angles. They would appear behind Craven formations, destroy several ships, and vanish before the enemy could respond. And at the heart of it all was Daniel. Lyra found the feed from his assault shuttle. She watched as his team breached a Craven command ship. The interior was organic, twisted, nightmarish. Craven drones rushed to defend their vessel. Daniel moved through them like wind through grass. His weapons fired in perfect rhythm. He never stopped moving. He never hesitated. Bodies fell behind him in a trail. Beside her, Torek watched with wide eyes. "That is not the man I met at the ceremony," he said. "No," Lyra agreed. "It is not." The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of fire and death and desperate fighting. Lyra watched it all. She saw human ships sacrifice themselves to protect Valari vessels. She saw pilots fly suicide runs into Craven carriers. She saw soldiers fight until their ammunition was gone, and then fight with their hands. And when it was over, the Craven fleet was broken. The survivors fled into dark space, leaving a field of debris behind them. Daniel's shuttle returned to Tessara Prime as dawn broke over the city. Lyra went to meet him at the landing pad. He stepped out covered in blood and ash. His armor was cracked. One arm hung at a bad angle. But he was alive. "We won," he said simply. Lyra looked at this man she had married, this quiet clerk who had become a demon of war. She did not know what to feel. "The Craven sent a message before they fled," she told him. They said the swarm mother herself is coming. Daniel nodded slowly. He did not seem afraid. If anything, he seemed tired, like a man who had been expecting bad news for a long time. Then we'll need more ships, he said, and we'll need to be ready. Lyra watched him go, her heart full of questions she did not know how to ask. The war had only just begun. 3 weeks passed after the first battle. The dead were counted and mourned. The damaged ships were repaired. And slowly, the truth about Daniel Cross spread through the Dominion. Lyra heard the whispers everywhere she went. The Grave Walker, they called him. The human who had led 100 impossible missions. The soldier who had once held a planetary fortress against 10,000 enemies with only 50 warriors at his side. The man who death seemed afraid to touch. She did not know how much was true and how much was legend. With humans, it was often hard to tell. Daniel spent most of his time with the military. He trained Volari soldiers in human combat techniques. He studied tactical data about the Craven. He prepared for the war that was coming. Lyra watched him from a distance. She was still his wife, but they barely spoke. They slept in the same quarters, but on opposite sides of the room. The marriage remained what it had always been, a political tool, nothing more. But she found herself wanting to understand him. One evening, she found him alone on a balcony, overlooking the city. He stood very still, watching the stars. His face was calm, but sad. "May I join you?" she asked. He glanced at her and nodded. They stood in silence for a while. Then Lyra spoke. "Tell me about New Montana." Daniel did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quiet. It was a colony world, 40,000 people. The Craven came without warning. "Command sent my unit to evacuate the civilians." He paused. "We had 3 days. We held the evacuation point for 3 days against waves of enemies. We saved 32,000 people." He continued. "That sounds like a victory. We lost them on the 4th day." His hands tightened on the railing. "The Craven broke through our lines. My team died holding them back. 23 soldiers who had followed me for years. They died so I could seal the evacuation ships and launch them." Lyra felt a chill. "You survived." "I was the only one. The rescue team found me 3 days later. I was still fighting, still killing. I don't remember most of it." He turned to look at her. "That's the truth about me. I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who couldn't die when he should have." Lyra did not know what to say. She had been taught that duty was everything, that sacrifice for your people was the highest honor. But looking at Daniel, she saw the cost of that belief. She saw a man who carried his dead with him everywhere he went. "Why did you accept this marriage?" she asked. "After everything you went through, why come here?" Daniel smiled slightly. "Because I was tired of only destroying things. I thought maybe I could build something instead, a real alliance between our peoples. Something that might last. And now? The Swarm Mother is coming, and I'll probably die fighting her. But at least I tried." He looked back at the stars. "That's all any of us can do. Try." Over the following days, Lyra found herself spending more time with Daniel. She watched him train soldiers. She listened to him plan strategies with Admiral Zeth. She saw how the Volari military began to respect him, then trust him, then follow him. Her brother Torek had been the most resistant. He had mocked humans as weak and short-lived. But after training with Daniel for 1 week, his attitude changed completely. "He broke 3 of my warriors in practice combat," Torek reported. "Without weapons, without armor. He moved faster than I could track. And when it was over, he helped them up and showed them what they did wrong." He shook his head. "I have never seen anything like him." "He is human," Lyra said. "He is what humans become when they stop pretending to be gentle." Intelligence reports arrived daily. The Swarm Mother's fleet was assembling at the edge of known space. The numbers were staggering. 5,000 vessels, maybe more. And at the center was the Swarm Mother herself, a creature that had consumed 12 civilizations. The High Council met to discuss options. Some wanted to flee, some wanted to negotiate, some wanted to fight. Daniel spoke last. "You can run," he said. "The Craven will follow. They don't want your territory. They want your species. They will chase you across the galaxy until there is nowhere left to run." "Then what do you suggest?" the matriarch asked. "Fight. Not alone, together." Daniel looked around the room. "I've sent word to Earth. The full colonial fleet is mobilizing. Every ship we have, every soldier. They'll be here within 2 weeks." "Why would humans risk so much for us?" a counselor asked. Daniel's expression hardened. "Because that's what we do. We fight for people who can't fight for themselves. We stand with our allies when everything falls apart. And we don't stop until the enemy is broken, or we are." The room was silent. Then slowly, the matriarch nodded. "We will fight," she declared, "beside our human allies, until victory or death." That night, Lyra found Daniel again on the balcony. But this time, she stood closer, close enough to touch. "You inspire them," she said. "My people, they believe in you." "They believe in hope," Daniel replied. "I'm just the one giving it to them." "Why do you fight so hard? After everything you've lost, why do you keep going?" Daniel turned to face her. His eyes were soft in the starlight. "Because if people like me don't stand up, then the darkness wins." He reached out and touched her hand. "And because now I have something worth fighting for." Lyra felt her heart skip. She realized that somewhere along the way, this political marriage had become something else, something real. "The Swarm Mother will come soon," she said. "Yes." "You might die." "Yes." She squeezed his hand. "Then tonight, let us not be strangers." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. "I would like that," he said. Above them the stars wheeled on, and somewhere in the darkness, the Swarm Mother was coming. The Swarm Mother's fleet emerged from dark space on a cold morning. Lyra stood in the command center and watched the tactical display fill with red. 5,000 vessels, 5,000 instruments of death and hunger, surrounding a biological ship the size of a small moon. The command ship was alive. It pulsed with organic light. It moved with terrible purpose, and somewhere inside it, the Swarm Mother waited. Admiral Zeth stood beside her, his face pale. "Our combined forces number 1,900 ships," he said. "The humans brought everything they had. It is still not enough." "It will have to be enough," Lyra replied. Daniel was aboard the flagship Ardent Fury, coordinating the human fleet. His voice came through the communication system, calm and steady. "All forces, this is Captain Cross. The enemy outnumbers us. That's nothing new. Humans have always fought against impossible odds. Today we do it again, but today we're not alone. Today we stand with our Volari allies. Today we fight for everyone the Craven have consumed." His voice hardened. "Today we make them bleed." The fleets moved toward each other. Lyra felt the tension in the command center. Everyone knew that this battle would decide the fate of civilizations. The engagement began at extreme range. Human ships darted forward in their strange formations, striking and retreating. Volari capital ships provided heavy fire support, their ancient weapons still powerful. The combined tactics were something new, something the Craven had never faced. For the first few hours, it seemed to work. Craven vessels fell by the dozens, then the hundreds. The Allied fleet held its ground. But the Swarm Mother had numbers beyond counting. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. Slowly, the Allied fleet began to lose ground. We can't win like this, Torek said. He was commanding a squadron of Valari cruisers. They'll wear us down through sheer attrition. Daniel's response came through clearly. I know. That's why we're not trying to win the conventional battle. We're buying time. Time for what? For me to kill the Swarm Mother. Lyra's blood went cold. She grabbed the communication device. Daniel, what are you planning? His voice softened when he heard her. The Swarm Mother is the Craven. All of them. Every drone, every ship, every warrior. They're all extensions of her will. If she dies, they all die. You can't know that. Human intelligence has been studying the Craven for decades. We're certain. Daniel paused. I'm leading a strike team to her command ship. We carry a prototype weapon that can kill her. But it has to be deployed directly in her core chamber. That's a suicide mission. It's our only chance. Lyra closed her eyes. She had known this moment would come. She had known, from the day Daniel revealed his true nature, that he would eventually do something like this. He was a soldier. He would always choose the mission over himself. I'm coming with you, she said. No. I am Valari. This is my people's fight as much as yours. And I refuse to sit here and watch you die. Her voice cracked slightly. Please, Daniel, let me stand beside you. The communication was silent for a long moment. Then Daniel sighed. Get to Shuttle Bay 7. We leave in 10 minutes. The strike team was small. Daniel, Lyra, Commander Kira Holt, and 12 of the best soldiers from both species. They loaded onto a stealth shuttle and launched into the chaos of battle. Lyra had never been in a combat zone before. The view through the shuttle windows was terrifying. Ships exploded all around them. Debris filled space like deadly rain. The Craven fleet was everywhere, a wall of organic vessels and swarming drones. But Daniel's pilot was skilled. They weaved through the battle, using debris as cover, staying in sensor shadows. Slowly, they approached the Swarm Mother's command ship. Breach point in 60 seconds, the pilot announced. Daniel checked his weapons one final time. He looked at Lyra. Stay behind me. Move when I move. Stop when I stop. I understand. And Lyra? He reached out and touched her face. Whatever happens in there, know that these past weeks with you have meant everything to me. Before she could respond, the shuttle slammed into the organic hull of the command ship. Cutting beams activated. A hole opened, and the strike team entered hell. The interior of the Swarm Mother's vessel was nightmarish. Walls of living tissue pulsed around them. The air was thick and wet. Strange sounds echoed from every direction. And the Craven came. Drones poured from the walls like insects from a broken nest. The strike team opened fire. Daniel moved at the front, his weapons blazing, cutting a path through the horde. Lyra fired alongside him. She was not a trained soldier, but Valari were naturally stronger than humans. She used that strength now, crushing drones that got too close, fighting with everything she had. The team pushed deeper. They lost soldiers along the way. Every corridor was a battle. Every chamber was an ambush. But Daniel would not stop. He kept moving forward, driven by something beyond normal endurance. Finally, they reached the core chamber. It was vast. Organic structures rose like towers. And at the center sat the Swarm Mother. She was enormous. Her body filled half the chamber, a mass of tentacles and eyes and consuming mouths. She turned her attention to the intruders, and Lyra felt the weight of her alien mind pressing against her thoughts. Humans, the Swarm Mother spoke directly into their minds. I have consumed the memories of 12 civilizations. I have existed for 10,000 years, and in all that time, I have never encountered a species like you. Daniel stepped forward. His face was hard. Good. Then you'll remember us. You are weak, short-lived, fragile. The The Swarm Mother's voice dripped with ancient contempt. "Yet you fight as if you are immortal. Why?" Daniel raised his weapon. "Because we know we're going to die. We just refuse to do it quietly." The Swarm Mother laughed, a sound that made Lyra's skull ache. "Then die you shall." The attack came from everywhere. Tentacles and drones and psychic assaults, all at once. The remaining strike team members fell, overwhelmed. Only Daniel and Lyra remained standing. Daniel pulled the prototype weapon from his pack. It was small, no larger than a fist, but it pulsed with contained energy that made the air shimmer. "Get to the extraction point," he told Lyra. "The shuttle is waiting." "I won't leave you." "You have to." He met her eyes. "Someone has to tell them what happened here. Someone has to make sure this meant something." Lyra felt tears on her face. "Daniel." He smiled, that gentle smile she had first seen at their wedding. "Go. Live. Remember me." Then he turned and charged toward the Swarm Mother. Lyra ran through the organic corridors of the Swarm Mother's vessel. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of battle, the roar of weapons, the screams of the dying. And somewhere beneath it all, Daniel's voice, still fighting. She reached the breach point. The shuttle was waiting, engines hot. Commander Kira Holt stood at the ramp, firing at the drones that pursued Lyra. "Get in!" Kira shouted. Threw herself aboard, the shuttle lifted off immediately, tearing free from the command ship and racing toward Allied lines. Lyra grabbed a tactical screen. She found Daniel's biosignature. He was still alive, still moving deeper into the Swarm Mother's core. "Can you hear me?" she called through the communication system. Static. Then his voice, broken but clear. "I'm here, almost at the center. The shuttle is away. We made it." "Good." She heard him grunt as he fought something. "That's good. There has to be another way." There isn't. The weapon has to detonate at the heart of her nervous system. That means direct contact. More sounds of combat. "I've made my peace with it, Lyra. I've been dying since New Montana. This is just me finally finishing the job." Tears streamed down her face. She wanted to argue. She wanted to scream. But she knew he was right. She had always known. "I love you," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. "I didn't expect to. I didn't want to. But I do." The communication was silent for a moment. Then Daniel's voice came back, softer than she had ever heard it. "I know. I love you too. That's why I can do this. Because loving you showed me that I still had something worth protecting." On the tactical screen, Lyra watched his biosignature move into the final chamber. The Swarm Mother's core. "I'm here," Daniel said. "She's throwing everything at me. Psychic attacks, physical assaults. She's trying to break my mind. Can you resist? I'm human. We're stubborn." A pained laugh. "She's showing me her memories now. All the civilizations she's consumed. All the species she's destroyed. She wants me to feel despair, to understand that resistance is pointless. And I'm showing her my memories. New Montana, the soldiers who died for me, the people I couldn't save, every moment of pain I've carried for years." His voice hardened. She wanted to see what makes humans fight. Now she knows. We fight because we have already lost everything. We fight because the pain makes us stronger. We fight because giving up is not in our nature. The Swarm Mother's voice cut through the communication, broadcasting to the entire fleet. "This creature is remarkable. So much suffering, so much loss, and still he stands, still he believes he can win." Daniel's response was broadcast too. His voice rang out across space, heard by every ship, every soldier, every being in the battle. "I don't believe I can win. I know I'm going to die. But I also know that my death will mean something. Every human soldier throughout history has known this truth. We are brief, we are fragile, we are mortal, and that is exactly why we are dangerous." He laughed, a sound of pure defiance. You've consumed 12 civilizations. You've existed for 10,000 years. And in the end, you'll be killed by one small human with nothing left to lose. That's the lesson. That's what you should have learned before you came here. Lyra watched his biosignature reach the center of the core. She watched him plant the weapon. Lyra, he said, his voice gentle again, tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity stood against the darkness. Tell them that we never kneeled, not once, not ever. I will, she whispered. I promise. Goodbye. The weapon detonated. On the tactical display, the Swarm Mother's command ship shuddered. Strange energy rippled through its organic structure. And then, all at once, it began to die. Across the battlefield, the Craven fleet went mad. Ships crashed into each other. Drones fell dead in space. The connection that had bound them to the Swarm Mother was severed, and without her, they were nothing. The Allied fleet moved in. Human and Valari ships fought side by side, destroying the confused enemy. The battle became a massacre, but a massacre of monsters. By the time the sun set on Tessara Prime, the Craven were gone. Lyra stood on the balcony where she and Daniel had talked so many times. The city below was celebrating. The war was over. The Dominion was saved. But she felt empty. The matriarch stood beside her daughter, in silence for a long moment. He was remarkable, the matriarch finally said. I arranged this marriage for politics. I never expected it to become what it became. Neither did I, Lyra said. The alliance between our peoples is stronger than ever. The humans have proven themselves beyond any doubt. Daniel's sacrifice will be remembered for generations. Lyra nodded. She had already commissioned a monument. It would stand in the central square of the capital, a statue of Daniel as the Valari had seen him in his final battle. Not a diplomat, not a soldier, something more. The inscription would read, "He came to us as a man, he left as something more." Years passed. Lyra served as ambassador to Earth. She walked among humans and learned their ways. She came to understand what Daniel had always known. Humans were not strong. They were not fast. They were not ancient or wise. But they were stubborn. They were brave. They loved deeply and fought harder. They faced impossible odds and refused to surrender. They died for each other and for strangers they would never meet. That was their gift. That was their power. Young Valari would often ask her about humans. They wanted to understand this species that had saved their civilization. Lyra would always give them the same answer. They are small and brief and fragile, and they are the most terrifying species in the galaxy, because they know all of this, and they fight anyway. She would touch the medal she wore around her neck. Daniel's service medal, the only thing that had survived the blast. It was warm against her heart. That is what it means to be human, she would say. That is why we must never forget them. And that is why if darkness comes again, we will stand beside them, as they stood beside us. Until victory or death, the young ones would nod, eyes wide with wonder. And somewhere in the stars, Lyra believed, Daniel was watching, smiling that gentle smile, proud of what they had built together.